Dogman sightings at the edge of town. Dear Scary Stories NYC. As the summer starts to cool off, I begin to think of Halloween. This year, for some reason, I'm thinking of the summer when I was a kid, maybe it was 2 summers, I'm not sure, when my town had a number of people claiming to see werewolves with real dog-like heads on the northwestern outskirts of Lancaster in Pennsylvania. My older brother Bradley and I got caught up into finding out if there was any truth to these rumors way back then, when they were fresh, and that led to both of us becoming the intended prey of the Dogman. First, let me tell you the stories we were hearing back then from our friends and their friends who were seeing the Dogman every single week. And then I'll get into the experience that my brother Bradley and I nearly didn't survive. Now, I'm gonna probably call this thing Dogman a lot throughout this, but we didn't use that word back then. You'll probably laugh when you hear what we called them, but please remember that it wasn't funny at the time to us. We called them the naked werewolves, okay? My son laughed the first time I told him this story, but you need to remember that the term used to send chills up and down the spines of my generation. I mean, these things were werewolves, which is a pretty crazy thing to be. And then, they didn't even wear clothing on top of that, which means they're even crazier than normal werewolves. These wolfmen were even considered rogues by the other wolfmen, you know? So one of the stories I remember going around back then was the one claimed to be true by a guy named Andy Topper. Andy said he was at a particular pumpkin patch to the northwest of Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and behind some of the trees at the edge of the pumpkin patch, or maybe a little bit past it, were big, gray, strange-looking dogs watching them. One of the dogs appeared to be holding his front leg around in front of the tree trunk it was hiding behind. Andy wondered if the dog was relaxing, or if it might be signaling that front arm was injured or broken. After all, the arm did seem to be bending in a weird way. Andy walked over to the dog, which caused it to take alarm and feel threatened. Its reaction was truly shocking. The beast stood up on its hind legs and gained a significant height advantage on Andy. In its upright state, Andy told everyone, the dog looked more like a werewolf than a canine, but, of course, a naked werewolf. Andy said his family left the pumpkin patch, and that was the end of that story. I knew a guy from my school named Tyrone. He said he was riding with his mom one evening on Harrisburg Pike, which is not very far from that pumpkin patch. It's a 2-lane highway over there, and in the direction they were headed at the time, there was a farm to their left and a forest headed steeply uphill to their right. They were coming up to a private road called Fawnwood Drive that led up to the right into the forest. Honestly, since I was a kid, I always imagined fawns and fairies and elves living up that road. I had never imagined a werewolf walking down it, though. According to Tyrone, he saw a large, gray, furry humanoid with a head like some kind of wolf or a prehistoric dog off to the right off in the woods approaching the road. Tyrone called out to his mother, who was driving, signaling to her that someone or something seemed to be about to run out onto the road. Then, according to how he told us, the two of them both saw a man taller than anyone they ever saw before walk out of the woods, covered head to toe in dark gray fur, and appearing to have a wolf head in the place of where a human one should be. This strange and unexpected creature was walking downhill out of the steep and heavily wooded Fawnwood Drive, right down plop onto Harrisburg Pike, right in front of their car, in the right lane of the pike by the woods there. Tyrone screamed at his mom to stop, then he covered his eyes. His mom did not stop, though. Instead, she hit the gas. Tyrone said his mom hit the gas and swerved into the left lane, whizzing past that naked werewolf and then zipping back into the right lane. "Not today, Lucifer," shouted his mom, or something like that. She was one of those ladies that felt each of her personal victories was also a win for the Lord. There were also stories going around back then of the naked werewolves taking back pumpkins that people got at that patch that year. It only happened if you lived in a 3 or 4 block radius of the pumpkin patch outside of town, but I happen to know someone who dated the older sister of this one kid who said his cousin's pumpkins were stolen right off their back porch before they even had a chance to carve them. Their family's joke at the time was that it was the family running the pumpkin patch who were stealing them back in order to keep up the repeat business. Nobody really believed that, but it did turn out to be related to those creatures who that 1 year at least, or maybe 2 years, seemed to be centered around that pumpkin patch. So, the cousin of the brother of the sister that the guy I used to know used to date went and got another batch of pumpkins. Only this time, he minded them more strenuously. He tied a bell to a thread on the back porch to signal him when someone was coming to steal his pumpkins. When that bell eventually did ring, he ran out back and saw a number of pumpkins being carried away by a sort of an animal man. He said it looked like a basketball player wearing the world's most realistic mascot costume ever. He said it looked just like a big old gray wolf, but it walked up on its hind legs. I got the impression from this story that the creature had hands. Otherwise, how could a wolf, even an upright one, hold more than 1 or 2 large pumpkins? I have to say, this, to me, was the most interesting of all the stories from that year. At the time, this was the one that got me asking questions, and it got me wanting explanations for what was happening as well. My mother's aunt visited us one afternoon and started talking about seeing a naked wolfman right out of the blue. She said she was driving one evening recently and saw it walking through a field by the edge of some woods to the north of Lancaster. She hadn't heard about any of these other stories I've been telling you about either. In fact, even after we told her about them, she seemed rather unimpressed. "Yes, dear, well, all those people are seeing this same animal because this same animal is going around in this same area, dear." She didn't seem to understand that werewolves aren't supposed to even exist, let alone naked ones. That was as amazing to me as any other part of it. The way my mother's crazy old aunt didn't think it was amazing that there was an apparent werewolf running around at the edge of our town near that pumpkin patch over there. Actually, there were a few of them, maybe even a lot of them. So, on Halloween proper, I remember wearing my Charlie Brown multi-hole sheet over my head ghost costume, and my brother came with me. There were no other kids with us that year, but I don't remember why. Bradley was my bodyguard, so that at least I wouldn't get messed with by anyone younger than he was. At some point in the night, though, we most definitely did get messed with. Out of the darkness of a dark block ran a tall werewolf. Well, taller than Brad, anyway. Probably not 6 feet tall, but a werewolf, covered in fur, with a head like some diseased, evil form of canine. I don't even remember where it sprang out from, but I remember Bradley running, and I remember me running after him. We cut through somebody's backyard, and then we ran up somebody else's driveway. I had no idea where we were going, but I hoped Bradley knew. Eventually, we found ourselves right by that pumpkin patch, the same one I've been talking about all through this email. Both Brad and I were leaning against a tree for support, trying to catch our breath. Brad was fed up, and he turned, ready to fight the Dogman, rather than run any further. And that was when the Dogman ripped his own head off, which turned out to be a mask. It was someone we knew, even someone we've already mentioned. It was Andy Topper, the guy who claimed he had seen the Dogman basically right where he had chased us to. He was the one who had given all of us the idea that there were bipedal upright walking dogs in our neighborhood in the first place. Had he hoaxed this entire thing by himself? Andy laughed cruelly, proud of himself for how frightened he had gotten us. I asked him if he was the one who had scared Tyrone, and if he was the one who had scared my mom's aunt. He acted like he didn't know what I was talking about. He still claimed that he really had seen the Dogman at that pumpkin patch. He said it was all real, and that was what inspired him to want to be the naked werewolf for Halloween. He showed us that it was really a monkey costume that he was wearing, but with a wolf head monster mask. He also pointed out differences between his costume and how the real Dogman looked when he had seen it. He wouldn't give up the gag, but Brad and I no longer believed that the Dogman was real at that point. And then Andy pointed to the tree he said he'd seen the Dogman stand up behind. And when we all looked, I swear to you, we saw two glowing eyes shining back at us from the darkness. At that point, I was impressed. I figured it was a setup and that Andy Topper was behind it again, but it was really creepy looking and I had to hand it to him. The guy was good at Halloween pranks. Only this time, Andy wasn't taking credit for the hoax, and he wasn't laughing either. He looked more scared than I felt, and when those eyes walked out of those trees in the actual skull of an upright walking wolf-type humanoid, the three of us took off running. Could we have been fooled again? Brad and I had run from Andy in a monkey costume with a dog mask, so yeah, we could definitely have been fooled again. The thing is, if this second one was a costume too, it was far superior to the one Andy had on. This one exhibited eye shine like a real animal for one thing. It had legs shaped like a dog's legs for another. It had big bad teeth for a third. Whether that was an animal or a guy in a seriously messed up costume, in either case, if I had that part of my life to redo, I'd still run just as hard from whoever or whatever that was. The three of us were running away along some road over there. It was trees on our right, the road on our left, Dogman taking his time chasing us in the rear. Of course, I, as the youngest, was running behind the other two and considerably more upset about the entire situation. Without warning, a second Dogman sprang out from the trees to my right. I lurched to the left up onto the road where I tripped over my own feet and landed hard on the pavement. Just then, I heard squealing tires and brakes, and I realized that I was either going to be attacked by the Dogman leaping onto the road, or I was going to be run over by that car vainly trying to stop its forward movement. I just closed my eyes and screamed, expecting the worst moment of my life to happen any second. And then, I was still screaming. I opened my eyes and saw that the car was stopped. I was being helped up and dragged into that car. I didn't see either Dogman anywhere around. The car was being driven by Andy Topper's mom, who apologized profusely to me and Brad, in between saying incredibly mean things to Andy, who sat there red-faced and crying. Brad laughed at him, weeping in his monkey suit. He sure looked dumb, and his mom made sure he felt as embarrassed as she did. The poor lady apologized to my mother, too, after she delivered us home. At least I never dropped my candy haul. Even with my life threatened by two Dogmen, I was the kind of kid who never loosened his grip on the packaged sugar treats. So, my brother Brad and I used to debate for a few years after that which of the Dogman sightings that year or two were real, and which were Andy in the monkey suit. To be honest, I think they were all the real thing except for that one time that Andy chased us on Halloween. Sometimes the easiest solution is the best, and in this case, accepting that the Dogman really was in our town around autumn in those days is the best explanation for our Dogman sightings. at the edge of town. Here's an odd email we got. They claim to be sending this information out to other shows as well. Please let me know if you hear this spreading around or not, thanks. Obviously, we don't know if this is for real or a prank or whatever, so please take it all with a grain of salt. We are presenting this, as all our stories, for entertainment purposes. And we call this next very odd little entertainment. It's time to take a stand. Acceptance of Dogman is imperative. Dear Scary Stories NYC, I am not writing only to you, but also to a number of other YouTube channels, blogs, podcasts, and other independent outlets, sending each of you a personalized version of the same basic information. The short version is that I am writing from an organization of people who are creating the first Dogman sanctuary that we are aware of. I am not yet at liberty to divulge too many specific details about our operation just yet, but we feel it is important now to move forward with educating the public about our philosophy and objectives. This way, when we move into action, you won't be creeped out and afraid of us like the Great Reset, but you'll accept us openly and willingly, like 4K HD. This is because, let's face it, most people who know about Dogman are afraid of Dogman. My organization's internal polling shows that over 80% of those who claim at least some awareness of Dogman classify him as the most scary. Oddly, almost 70% of that 80% would still like to someday see the creature in person. My organization and our movement seeks to reconcile these two strong reactions. Our aim is nothing less than to create a comfortable habitat for the three distinct species of Dogman that we have so far attracted to our dwelling place, and then to safely allow tourism and study so that the sanctuary can pay for itself. Universities could pay fees for permission to study the creatures, while the public is allowed to view them both in person and possibly streaming live online as well. We're still in the early stages of finding out if we will legally be able to do that last part. It's sort of a can we've got to kick down the road until we can prove that the sanctuary itself can legally, ethically, morally, and operationally exist. Why are we doing this? In the opinion of the individuals I represent, this planet is running out of resources. This is already leading to greater competition for less return. If you believe that humans and Dogman are the two greatest predators on the surface of the Earth, then you may already be able to see where the logic is leading. If it all came down to a battle for resources between us and them, wouldn't we be in a far better situation if we had already planned ahead and found a way to neutralize their threat? I don't mean by fighting the Dogman, no. That would cost too many lives on both sides. There are better ways to achieve the same or similar goals, and one of them would be to appease the Dogman. That isn't to say that our plan wouldn't cost lives. We mourn those who have been lost already in our early efforts to attract the creatures to our sprawling property. Yes, both men and women have had their lives ended, and I'm sure more will in this effort in the future as well. This is a dangerous business, but an important one. Lives were lost building the Brooklyn Bridge. That doesn't mean we should tear it down, does it? When I told this idea to my 81-year-old father, he denounced it as government assistance for monsters, and even though that attack stings, I have to admit, it's not entirely untrue. I'm hoping that the educational aspects will help the project avoid needing government assistance of any kind, but I do think that we need to set up habitats along the lines of government nature preserves, which feed and maintain the current population of the North American upright walking canine, or Dogman. I think that if we don't, we will find ourselves in a battle for resources with the only predatory species on this planet, that may be superior to us in terms of securing what it needs. If we don't appease the Dogman, we may be overrun by them instead. Another aspect of all of this is that we, as humans, need to accept the fact that we are the only reason that the Dogman do not already run this planet. We have done this creature a great injustice, and we need to accept that our role in the Dogman's life has always been that of the oppressor. We make him the villain in our stories. We make him the one who blows down the houses of the three little pigs. Meanwhile, in reality, Dogman has lived a marginalized existence thanks to a privileged human race working together to keep the Dogman down. Right now, there isn't much you can do to help, except to begin to readjust your minds to prepare for the new paradigm. If you fear the Dogman, it is because he threatens you with the loss of your human privilege. Therefore, fearing the Dogman is the same as committing violence against the Dogman. Since all people fear the Dogman, we must accept our role as oppressor and work to create equity with bipedal canines. To make amends for ruling the planet, we must take a knee before the superior race that is the North American upright walking canid. We now end this educational session, and we will be in touch soon with more attitude realignment information. If you take nothing else with you from this lecture, please remember this one thing. It's time to take a stand. Acceptance of Dogman is imperative. He's the best from Catalina to Bosnia Herzegovina. He's the king of the arena. He's Jason Regina. Please join me in thanking our newest channel member, Jason Regina, for helping to make this episode possible. In return, Jason gets to see our weekly Sunday night secret uncensored episodes, far too wild to ever run on this channel. You can see them too by joining our PayPal subscribers club at peterbernard.com, or else by clicking that join link under this or any of our videos. Now, here's our spokes dog Henry Lee Dogman to explain the parts I may have left out. Hank? Thanks for watching till the end. If you liked what you saw, please consider clicking like on the video or sharing it with your friends and family that you think might also be interested. If you would like to see more of our work, please consider subscribing and hitting that bell icon next to the subscribe button so that YouTube will alert you when we put out a new video. To become a channel member and gain access to our special perks, you can click that join link under each of our videos. Another option is to join our PayPal subscribers club at peterbernard.com. You can join for as little as 99 cents on YouTube or $1.50 at peterbernard.com. And that gains you access to our weekly secret uncensored episodes. If you'd like to see our 21 hours of archives of uncensored Dogman stories, then please join at the $3 level or above. To get to watch our shows in advance of the public, please join at our $10 level. That gets you all the perks. If you join our channel memberships, you need to check our community page here on YouTube in order to get the links to the secret videos and other perks. If you're in the PayPal subscribers club, Peter will email you all the news and links himself. Once joining the PayPal club, which is Peter's homemade club, please give him a chance to see that you've joined and to compose you a personal welcome email, as none of that is automated. But whichever you join, we'll name you an executive producer for the next available episode. Do you have a scary experience that you'd like to share with us? You can email us at scarystoriesnyc@gmail.com or call our Scary Stories voicemail hotline at 804-LA-SCARY. That's 804-537-2279. It's a Google voicemail box, so that means it keeps cutting off after every 3 minutes. If your story is longer than that, please keep calling back and we can piece it together on our end. Good night, and have a scary tomorrow.
more scary stories.